Hey everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel today. We got our good friend Chad Maves here again, chatting with us about food plots. Chad is a very knowledgeable resource with food plots. He has worked many years in the food plotting and outdoor industry with Reed's Custom Food Plots right in central Wisconsin. Got him on today. We're going to be chatting kill plots, how to set them up, how to make it happen, and Chad, thanks for coming on again, and let's dive right into it.
All right. Yeah. So setting a kill plot. Uh, a lot of setting a kill plot. It so much depends. Every property is a little bit different, but my kill plots are usually in areas where I'm catching deer in between bedding and their main food source. So the ideal kill plot is you're almost halfway in between. You're catching the deer before they get out to their primary food source, and it allows you to hunt that spot more than once because if you have your access right, which access is a whole other topic, I'll just hit on it shortly now. Your access is almost the most important topic in my mind, especially early season and hunting over food, because if the deer are alerted to you hunting them on a food source, it's all of a sudden you go from seeing 20 deer to 12 deer down to no deer, and then everything's at night because they're onto you. I learned the hard way that in my youth, just not knowing what I was doing. So your kill plot, if you can choose the location, I'm setting up the location to where I have good access and the wind direction is almost always in my favor, but yet good for a buck in a lot of cases. And if you don't get to pick the spot, then you do things to dictate where you want them. So kill plots aren't meant to feed deer. They're meant to create shot opportunity is what I tell most guys. It not necessarily it matters what you plant, especially in crop areas and the time of year you want to try to hunt your kill plot, but it's more location. If most of your kill plots are interior woods plots or they're right on the edge, they're not out in an open, so anything green there, you're going to get them to stop, check it out, feed a little bit before they head wherever they're going to end up. So in most cases, anywhere you set it up, if you have a choice, set it up to where you can get in and out clean and your wind direction, certain wind directions, for sure. I like to set a lot of things up for a cold front. Like before a front, you're getting an east wind, so I'll have an east wind stand on my kill plot, and after it, you're getting that northwest wind, so I'll have a stand set up for that wind. Hopefully, you can do both. If you can't do both, you have one for one wind, one for the other, if it's an option. But yeah, I don't know. Would you dig deeper into that, Mansler? Or does that answer it pretty good?
I do want to dig deeper, not necessarily into the food plot setup, but what you touched on with the access. When you're when you're doing access, um, particularly say you're hunting over these plots, these kill plots, um, what strategies have you implemented over the years as far as accessing them properly to get in and out without um, causing risks to future hunts?
So the ideal thing is guys need to know where their deer are bedding. So you cannot access this kill plot on a wind that's blowing your scent through the bedding area where you're expecting a deer to come from. So you just ruined your hunt before you ever got to the stand. So your approach needs to be uh, basically so your wind is good as you're going in. You're not alerting the deer to your presence. And then guys never seem to think about the exit. Like I love using coon urine. I know you do too, man. So we usually were fighting over who bought Fleet Farm out first, but you should never have your foot smell be a problem. If you use coon urine, which coons are all over the United States, like that, it blows my mind when you see guys that say they're professionals and he cut our foot track and busted us. Yeah, that shouldn't happen. Use a little coon urine on your boots and they never pay any attention. But I do I do that going in and going out, and I've killed mature deer that have walked on my footpath and had no clue I was in the world. I've had 20 plus deer on alfalfa field that I walked straight across using that scent. I'm not a promoter for coon urine. That's just my little trick for early season
It
hunting.
sounds like you are for Wildlife Resource Center or something.
Right. Well, I should get dibs on the amount of coon urine I've turned guys onto to use just for a cover scent. But I tell a lot of guys that I consult with, it's like you got to think about your exit too. So you have your kill plot set up, and say on your way in, you walked past your your destination food source. Well, on your way out, you need a different exit strategy because you don't want to walk back out there after that's where all the deer have got. So you got to always be thinking kind of 2 steps ahead, like where they are now when I'm going in so I don't alert them, and where are they when I'm going out so I don't alert them. That's probably the biggest thing. And setting your staging plot is, like I like to call it, and I did this in Pella and it works really well. It's I have the plot set up closer to the bedding areas from the primary, and if it's all working like it should, which a lot of times it does, most of the deer are gone from me before dark, so then I can slip out without ever knowing I'm hunting. I'm hunting that spot. We've killed multiple bucks now, the fourth, fifth, sixth sit in, or the kids killing them in the youth hunt after I've hunted out there for 3 weeks already, just because the exit and entrance is so good. And 90% of the time, the deer are gone. Like, I'll see more deer, say it's dark by 7. I see more deer between 4:30 and 5 than I do that last hour, because it's just set up perfectly for that. And that changes sometimes with the weather. You'll get some deer out there right at dark, and I'm not going to get out of the stand. If I got deer in the plot, I'll just sit and wait it out because I know they'll eventually leave in most cases, and then I slip out, which sometimes means you sit there for another hour after dark. But you do what you got to do to, if it's a really good spot, you don't want to burn it out. And I learned that in my younger years when I first started hunting. You start sitting on alfalfa fields, and your first sit you see 20 deer, and then you just get down at night and leave, and they come in there and sit the next night. No, tonight I only see 10. And then you just get down and leave again at night, and then you go in the next night and you see 2 deer, and then all of a sudden no deer. It's like a few years of doing that, and you're like, well, what am I doing here that my hunts keep deteriorating like this? And it didn't take long to kind of put the pieces together. That's where access is everything, and then the exit is
Mm-hmm.
pretty much just as important.
Yeah. I I want to get into actually the designing of the food plot, but I do want to kind of talk a little bit more about access, because, like you said, access is what I honestly think it kills you the deer more than anything,
Oh,
regardless of the food plot
100%.
and how you design it. Um, Something that I know you've implemented on your properties you hunt, and I started doing several years ago back in Wisconsin, is I'll utilize, like, I got some food plots that are in the timber. Um, I utilize a snow fence to not only block deer travel on my downwind side when I'm in the tree, but it also allows me to get in and out so much cleaner to that particular food plot, or some other plots I've hunted in the past. Um, Also, it forces the deer into your food plot, so it's kind of a double edged sword for benefits. But maybe talk a little bit more about that, how you've done it on your properties, because I know you've been messing around with it for quite a few years now.
Oh yeah, for sure. We actually we did a on our YouTube channel. We did a video on it. We called it funneling for fences. So, like, your home property, Manslow, is flat as a pancake. If you have no contour to dictate deer movement, they can just move freely wherever they want because it's a flat landscape. You'll get some trees tipped down and whatever. So I've done things where fencing works really well if you have access to fence and it's an area you can do it. Snow fence. I've done barbed wire and in Pella just because that's what I had access to, and I did 5 strands. And I'll still see some does jump it once in a while, but big bucks don't like to jump those fences. I very rarely ever see them jump the fence, but that all comes down to shot opportunity. Again, you're getting these interior woods plots. It's a chess game. The more pieces you can align to favor you and dictate where the deer are going to end up to give you a good broadside shot, that that's what you're ultimately trying to do. Like, if you can put a fence, like I have a small fence on my Pella project that it's only 40 yards of fence, but it means the deer are going to be at 15 yards instead of 40 yards. And they do it. They do not jump over that fence.
Mhm.
They will walk around the end of it every time because it's the easiest. Deer are lazy, and it puts them within easy bow range instead of a tough bow shot. So the other way of doing that is we've tipped trees. You can do some of that hinge cutting, drop a bunch of trees, make it tough to get through, but they seem to always find a hole in that. So yeah, any
Yeah.
type of fence you can
And
put up to dictate your.
one thing I've found out too about the trees is I've done that on some of my properties that now I have fences in place. Um, it works great year one, But by year 2, year 3, year 4, as these trees start to deteriorate and die, they start getting more matted down to the ground, which allows it
Yep.
a lot easier for the deer to pass through in certain areas.
Yeah, for sure. Because most guys, hinge cutting is a whole separate topic, but most guys don't understand the tree species well enough to. The whole purpose of hinge cutting is the tree doesn't die; it survives and will continue to kind of be a barrier because the angled tree starts growing upward and so on and so forth. But most tree species just don't survive. You tip them down, and even if they're still connected, they end up dying and then do exactly what you said. And after a few years, they're flat or they make a little hole through the top and away they go. It's so, yeah, the fencing is it's a little bit of work. It's some elbow grease to put in, but it's again what you're out there for. If you can do a little bit of fencing to get a deer within bow range, it's worth it. Especially if you got an area
Yeah.
where I learned it the hard way. Heather got a shot at a buck, and he pushed her edge of her range. It was at 35 yards, and there was a flat area. There was no he could come anywhere he wanted to this food plot, and he did. So I put up a fence there for 40 yards right to the stand, and now every deer that enters that food plot from that bedding area walks around the end of that fence. Since I've done that, I've not seen a single deer jump it. They all walk 15 yards away, and they all stop perfectly broadside to check the food plot before they go out on it. It's a slam dunk.
Yeah. And the wooden fences is what I've had the most success with. I know you use a lot of them. I used like some snow fence in the past, some of the cheaper stuff you can get from really like any sort of farm and home store. Um, they work good, but I've seen where deer just eventually might just plow right through them. Wooden fences, for some reason, they don't really like to mess with. It's just something they can't really see the other side of it, and they just want to go around it a lot of times. There's obviously with that kind of fencing, there's maintenance involved. Something you got to check up every year. Um, and I've had it where a couple of mine, like I said, deer have ran through them. You got to patch them up in spots, or unfortunately, you get a tree falls down in the woods, and then that's a whole other scenario. But um, one thing I want to go into with like is like your food plots or your kill plots. Um, are these typically in a wooded setting, or are you doing these on the edge of fields? Like, where are you normally setting up these kill plots?
That's all of the above. Every property is so unique, uh, and it depends early season to rut hunting. It's all different. I have so many different scenarios, but typically, like a lot of my early season stuff, I'll have a kill plot closer to a destination field, because then I kind of like to hunt outside in. So early season, to not burn out a property and push deer, I'll have my more interior stuff. I leave that alone because the deer haven't been educated. They're moving all afternoon, so I'll stay out on the edges. So typically my kill plots there, or I'll have, say, a big 2 acre bean field. I'll have a small clover plot and some fencing, whatever, in front of my bow stand where they're coming out to eventually get to the beans. But I'm trying to get them before they get there, and I'm just far enough off that main plot that I can slip out at night in most cases. And then as the season goes on, I'll have interior stuff that I start pushing into, which is usually my rut stuff, but very rarely will I ever go in there early. So most of my setups are like that. I'm hunting kill plots pretty close to destination plots early season, and then I'll have interior wood stuff, or I'll have stuff set up in the woods where I'm cutting deer off before they get to those plots, or I'm cutting a buck off, just scent checking those plots. Because a lot of times around home, they get pressured so much. A lot of our bucks don't go out and even look. They just get on the downwind side and scent check them that way, because they don't expose themselves to the opening by the first week in November, because now they've been pressured hard for 2 or 3 weeks by everybody in the woods. So
Mm,
yeah, that's kind of how that varies for me. I'm kind of hunting outside in most cases.
okay. I just want to go into a couple different scenarios, get your advice on them. Um, just going to paint a little bit of a picture. Um, you're wanting to establish a kill plot in a timber setting. Um, there's not a plot established in there right now, but it's close to a bedding area, and you do have a logging road you're trying to establish this on. From it's an older logging road, we'll say. Uh, I want to try and kind of paint this to what maybe a lot of our viewers might have. So you have limited equipment that you can use in there right now. Uh, I'll let you use a 4-wheeler chainsaw disc. What what would you do in that situation as far as creating a kill plot? How you design it, maybe how you lay it out.
Uh, so if I'm thinking interior woods, yeah, so your chainsaw is there to make sure you're getting enough sunlight to it. The other thing is you need to remove leaf cover. Like leaves, a ton of leaves on a plot aren't great for it. They make it more acidic, and they just stuff doesn't grow very good through leaf cover. So you need to get that off. That's one thing we didn't really touch on. There's a lot of these throw and grow products. They'll work, but the more soil prep you do, the better your plot's going to turn out. So in most cases, my interior woods plots, I'll do 3 things minimum. So if I got it to where I got enough sunlight, I'm soil testing it, doing all that, what we already talked about, and I'm putting something highly grazable in there. I'm not doing corner beans. I'm doing some type of greens, clover, cereal grains, maybe a brassica blend. I wouldn't do probably straight brassicas ever on just a interior plot, so I like it to be highly grazable. But the other thing I'm adding in there, if you can get a shovel back there and dig yourself a little water hole close to a bedding area, interior woods. Unless there's water everywhere, they can be really good. And then I'll do the scrape ropes or scrape pines. Like I like to put as many pieces in the puzzle in my kill plots for getting a buck to stop there. So I'll add multiple things to set up a shot, because the more things you can add in your favor, the better your chances are, especially as you get older and kids and everything else. Your hunting time is limited, so stack the odds as much as you can.
That's very smart. Like you mentioned, and I've started doing this a lot more in my plots where I've incorporated water, especially down here, because water is a little bit more of a limiting factor. All my spots usually have a scrape vine, um, but yeah, just really like enhancing it not only from a food perspective, but just from an attraction perspective for creating more of a social center point, I guess you'd call it,
Yeah,
on your
I
property.
call it a hub. You're creating a hub. So as you even if you bring a dozer in, like you're manipulating the property to your advantage. So say you're bringing some heavy equipment in to set up some plots, there's more things. It's a whole nother topic, but where our experience is valuable is we can pick areas not only that are good for deer hunting that but make sense from a food plot standpoint, versus a lot of guys, experts out there, just base it off location. Well, it doesn't help you if it's a rock pile or it's got some giant oak trees in it that's going to take an hour to pull each stump. Like that's just not cost effective.
All right, I want to paint another scenario for you. Um, we're gonna go along a wood edge now. We did an interior plot, kill plot design. We're gonna go along the wood edge. Um, you got hardwoods going into thicker bedding, say 200-300 yards away. Um, on the edge of this field, it was an old CRP field. Next to it is some sort of agriculture, corn, beans, whatever you can kind of pick whatever. But it'll be on a corner of a field also, or the corner of the CRP area um, that you're going to be putting this plot in. Um, you can kind of pick how you want to lay it out, wind direction, whatever. But I want to have it so it's you have to use the corner of the food plot to attract deer. Um, let's see what you got for that situation.
I mean, if you're that one's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, the thing you described there, you described a lot of edges, and deer love edges. So you got 2 different types of timbers. They're going to use that edge. You got thick next to open hardwoods. There's going to be usually a major trail along the edge of that thick stuff, right on the edge of the open hardwoods. That's going to be a main spot coming out naturally. And then you're going to have woods next to CRP. That's going to be another edge that they're going to use naturally. So you figure out ways, depending on where that corner lands, that you're using all those to your advantage. So anytime you got edges, everybody says deer are edge creature, and they definitely are. So you have an edge of the woods versus CRP there, and then you have the edge of 2 different types of woods that will have a trail coming out. If you can dictate that movement to make sure it ends up in that corner, I'm doing something to do that, whether it's mowing a trail or putting a fence up. But especially setting it up for bow hunting, everything's trying to just get something within range. If it's moving daylight, you want to put it in front of your stand. So use those edges to your advantage. Whether you can set the food plot to take advantage of both of those, some through the CRP. If you're setting up a kill plot going to another area and you got deer bedding in the CRP, you can plant something through the CRP to create an edge, or just mow a couple trails. Like, deer are lazy; they love using a trail. Mow right down through the center of it, leads right to your food plot. That's a real simple way to do that. So yeah, in that scenario, it seems usually if you're in a corner, corners are always really kind of natural in and out points to a field. So 9 out of 10
Yeah,
times you see a buck
absolutely.
come onto a field, he's coming on a corner. So it's already kind of set up probably in a really good spot.
Yeah. Now, like, say in this situation, you're able to use more heavier equipment. What would you use, or how would you use that equipment to make it a little bit more of an advantage for you for setting that plot up?
You mean like getting it bigger?
Bigger, designing it, like you name it. Like, what would you be doing to create it with heavier equipment compared to like smaller equipment?
Yeah, the big difference is then you can just go bigger. So say you had a 10-acre CRP field and you were allowed to take 3 or 4 acres out. Well, then you've just been given the option to put a variety of crops in and try to plant for different types of the season. So you're just picking the best spot of that field. Most likely it's all pretty similar ground. You're picking the best spot of that field to wherever it hunts the best. So where you have the best access, you're less likely to have deer downwind to you. But really, the only difference in how I would use big equipment versus little equipment is the bigger the equipment, the more you can do, the more you can plant. You could do corn, beans, and then any type of greens you want. As far as the design, you can do different shapes. You can do different types of screenings to make deer get up and move to one section to the other. I mean, the sky is kind of the option once you get big. Like, a lot of times I like using corn. You can plant in a letter E or something like that to create bays to get deer. There's some guys that do that a lot. It works okay, I think, here in a lot of spots in Wisconsin, but I've also seen once they feel some pressure, they don't check the bays with their eyes. They'll just check them with their nose. So then it's not as effective, but it works really well early. So it's really the
Do you
difference in
notice
equipment.
like do you notice any sort of like shape design that you feel like has been more beneficial?
Uh, Not necessarily. So when I design a food plot, especially if I'm thinking bow hunting in that scenario, I might narrow it down. Like, say I would do one square, then have a little funnel area leading into the next square or something like that. Just if you got a 3 acre field, you still want to figure out ways where deer just don't feed on one end of it. You want to give them an excuse to travel the whole thing and eventually go past you. Say you just planted the whole works to beans and didn't take any other steps to get him within bow range. Well, he can come out and feed on one end of it and he has no reason to move. He'll feed there for an hour till dark and there you sit. So if you plant a variety, you set it up in a way to put them in bow range. There's lots of ways to do that. You can plant like a teardrop shape, or the shape doesn't necessarily matter. Your main goal is to get them in bow range. So whatever that shape looks like to do that, that's what I'm doing. And that varies
Okay.
depending on the landscape widely.